Welcome to Map Design 101, where we talk about the finer details of map and area design to show how they make the gaming experience better or worse. Whether you're a designer or merely want to know why you love or hate the maps you do, this resource is for you. This week we're breaking down the esoteric concept of map flow into its three major parts, considering how side objectives can reinforce or subdivide map flow, and then talking about why some maps don't seem to flow at all. Map flow is a concept that most people tend to have a decent conceptual grasp of on a broad scale, but have a harder time nailing down to specifics. As a term, it is broad, yet it implies something more specific about the way maps play, and tends to go hand in hand for many players with how enjoyable maps are. To operationally define map flow, I will summarize it as the interaction between many aspects of a map, including but not limited to the movement of units, the rhythm of battle, and the difficulty of enemies. While you could subdivide map flow into even more specific categories, giving leeway for map-specific interactions and variability of player units, these three major categories encompass the majority of what is often referred to as map flow. So let's break it down. Movement of units is the largest portion of map flow. Simply put, where do your units start, where are the enemies and objectives, and what are the ideal paths between the two? A map with one clear way forward, be it through a long and winding tunnel or across an open field, could be said to have a linear map flow. A map that splits your army into two could be said to have divided map flow. A map where you defend an objective might have flow more determined by where the enemies are and how many points of conflict exist, rather than how you move your own army. A map that has multiple possible paths could have a variety of flow types, and thus we do need to consider the rhythm of battle and the difficulty of enemies before fully defining map flow. The rhythm of battle refers to the cadence of conflict and downtime. Most maps aim for an active flow, with regular combat punctuated by no more than a turn or two of pure movement and setup between significant engagements. A map with significant amounts of movement between combat can feel boring or tedious for many players. That said, a map with constant, non-stop combat can also feel tedious or grindy without the player being able to earn a turn of lessened action or see their progress being made. The ideal will change with the map designer's intent, but in general, combat should be a fun and interesting part of your map, but it should also be paced such that the player feels like they can reasonably prepare for each encounter, particularly higher difficulty ones such as bosses. Which then brings us to enemy difficulty as part of map flow. In general, the early enemies will be the barometer for player expectations of the map. Enemies in the middle of the map can become stronger or more numerous, but only occasionally both, without throwing your players off. Many bosses work well for one-off stronger enemies amid clusters of weaker ones. Then, enemies towards the end of the map, namely bosses and boss room enemies, should represent stronger individuals that the player can either devote more specific preparation to, or potentially outnumber in ways that they couldn't for other enemies. Reinforcements can be used to reinforce this broad difficulty flow or to diverge from it, but be very careful about intent and positioning with reinforcements. Particularly strong reinforcements, such as the dragons in several chapters of New Mystery, can be used to add tension and push the player towards their objectives, but they can also be an immediate wrench shuttering the otherwise stable flow, such as in several late-game maps from Awakening. Weaker reinforcements, such as the Pirates and Pyrathi Dragon, can help pressure the player if they go for side objectives, but they can also clog the map up and grind things to a halt, such as the pirates in the Western Isles. With these three pillars, you can probably identify most aspects of general map flow. That said, one of the bigger causes of both the best and worst of map flow is the presence and implementation of side objectives. A good side objective should feel optional, but desirable. A good side objective feels like the map intended for you to go for it, and the map can even be built around that side objective, but it cannot significantly interrupt the main map flow without good reason. Princess Minerva's namesake recruitment is cleanly built into the map as its core feature, reinforcing an adjusted linear or split army flow, while Xavier's recruitment in Liberation of Leonster diverts the entire map flow in a tedious and obnoxious manner. For maps without dedicated, overt side objectives, They will often have villages or treasure chests in slightly out of the way locations, usually with a thief or bandit to take them. This pressures the player into prioritizing that objective. Both mild and serious time pressure can work, but while poorly designed mild pressures feel redundant or tedious, like Bantu's Village and Left Candy Gauntlet, poorly designed serious pressures can leave the player frustrated if anything doesn't go their way, like the Bargain Band Village in Battle for Augustria. Most maps will generally want to have some form of the standard flow, maybe adjusted based on objectives. Route maps, for instance, tend to feel the effects of slower or unintuitive map flow more egregiously than Siege maps. But what about maps without clearer map flow? Often, small maps can't really be said to have a flow, as they usually amount to just a single moment of conflict. More momentous conflicts, such as Ike vs. the Black Knight, can be stretched out across multiple turns via stat math to emulate a type of flow, but unless there are other things going on, such as in Radiant Dawn or the older brother duels in Fates, it's hard to really say that a dueling map has flow. If a larger map doesn't have a clear map flow, that's likely because it's trying to do something specific and different. However, if a map does not have a set flow, then player behavior will tend to dictate the map flow for you, and it will often be slower and less engaging because most players are, at least to some degree, risk-averse. Fates Revelations has many maps that try to play with the usual map flow, and they all tend to suffer from either feeling too slow and grindy, or from feeling like the challenge spikes out of nowhere with no warning, usually because the maps rely on player action to dictate their map flow. Maps like Voice of a God, Rainbow Sage, and Blades Drawn, among others, suffer from this issue of requiring players to act first while creating difficult-to-clear pods of enemies with defensive AI. This leads players into slow, cautious gameplay that nibbles away at the map for dozens of turns until eventually throwing caution to the wind towards the very end, often resulting in getting overwhelmed, losing units, restarting, and general dissatisfaction with the experience. But that's map flow in a nutshell. To summarize, remember the 3 pillars of unit movement, battle rhythm, and difficulty. Plan your side objectives to reinforce your desired map flow and not distract from it. And be wary of deliberately avoiding intentional map flow, as most players won't tend to make things interesting if left to their own devices. And thank you all so much for watching! It's been good to write and record another Design 101 video. A special thank you to my channel members who have helped support me through this relatively dry period of content. At the Royal Laguzguard tier we have A Forgotten L, and in the Laguzguard tier we have C2 Peekily, Enigmatic Mr. L, Mad Moke, Bro Duderman, Kumi, Miss Mesmerism, and Drumstab 913. You can join the Laguzguard tier for less than $1 a month to get access to videos as soon as they're edited, get your name here on the credits, and get access to a variety of bonus content, such as me talking about whatever's on my mind while trying to solo Fire Emblem Gaiden with Alm and Celica. But until next time, this is Mithril Zenith signing out.